an alcoholic. Because of the grace of God, some simple actions in this program and both sides of sponsorship, I've been sober every single day in a row since December the 17th, 1985. It's the biggest deal in my life, and because of it, I have this amazing life. And I tell you what's interesting, Riley came and did a fifth step at my house last summer. It was pretty neat, and Riley's never heard my talk. I've sponsored her for 2 years. She has no idea. She just knows me through taking her through the steps, and that's beautiful. And language of the heart and emotional sobriety, which was that reading, that is my heart. I have a couple tables full of women that I sponsor and women that they sponsor, and thank you for inviting me to your love fest here. As I was leaving the house, I was told, enjoy Valentine's Day with your first love, because it's the truth. Alcoholics Anonymous is my first love. And prior to getting here, I did not have a capacity to love, and nor did I have the capacity to feel loved. As a matter of fact, I often say that even Mother Teresa could not have made me feel loved when I was out there in the madness. I have so many stories I want to tell, and I've been sober a long time, and I've had this amazing life. So I'm going to try to get through what qualifies me really quickly. What makes me an alcoholic? Well, let's first of all say I started drinking when I was about this big, and I drank for the exact reason it talks about in the textbook of Alcoholics Anonymous, the effect produced by alcohol. Now, some people, it makes them taller, smarter, prettier. It didn't do any of that for me. I felt like I was bleeding from the inside out. I felt like I had the worst life of anybody I knew. And when I drank, I didn't hurt as much. And for a long time, drinking was my solution. And that's why when it turned on me, it was very hard to catch it. That deception of alcohol, that thing that made you feel better, that made the world safer, that let me not live in that constant terror of I don't just have a committee up here, I got a firing squad that's out to get me. It's like that's what alcohol did for me. And then it started betraying me, but I couldn't see that. See, I still thought it was my friend. I still treated it like it was my friend, but it wasn't. What makes me an alcoholic, because I'm going to talk about some consequences of my drinking. That has nothing to do with what makes me an alcoholic. Those are consequences of my drinking. What makes me an alcoholic, and everybody in this room, this is a closed meeting, so this is the one thing that every single one of us should have in common. When I drink, I can't guarantee you when I will stop. That's the number one thing. The number two thing is once I have drank, I get an obsession of when I get to drink again, and it is my obsession. That is what makes me an alcoholic. Now, I had a lot of consequences. I was told the first time I was an alcoholic when I was 14 years old. I was living in a foster home. By this point, I'd already been in lots of institutions and in and out of the streets, and I'm in this foster home, and my foster brother and sister have muscular dystrophy. And I love being in this foster home because I'm needed. They needed me to help put them to bed. My foster mom was by herself, and she has these two kids that could never feed themselves. They couldn't give themselves a bath. They couldn't put themselves on the toilet. And now she had me, and I helped. And they loved it. They used to sing me little songs. It's so nice to have a slave around the house. And I would just swell up with pride, because I'd never been wanted anywhere. And I wouldn't know that again till I came here. My foster mom was very liberal for a foster mom, and she let me drink with her when the kids went to bed. We would play chess and drink. And we're playing chess and drinking one night, and she says, and she flattered me, and she made me think I could be something someday. And she said, Cyndi, you're an alcoholic. She said, I probably am too. She said, whatever you do, don't go to that A of A. She said, they're going to try to make you believe in God. And she said, just look at my kids. and tell me how there's a God that never let them walk, that never let them be able to go to the bathroom by themselves. And so what that did was it planted this seed in the back of my mind, which I've come to know to be old ideas. And in my longer recovery, it's been a lot about smashing out old ideas and where's the root of those. Things that I couldn't necessarily address in early recovery. The other thing she had was one rule. I wasn't allowed to drink until the kids were in bed because it was too dangerous. You know, I'm carrying them. I'm doing these things. And this is where alcoholism comes in. Because I have a brain that thinks I'm above the rules. I have a brain that thinks I'm sneakier than you. I have a brain that says I can drink and you won't notice, which is very rarely true. And so this foster home where they needed me, and it's the first time I remember ever trying to control my drinking, I couldn't keep my commitment to not drink till the kids went to bed and they had to throw me out. And so 3 years, I'm in and out of institutions, the streets. I don't really go to high school. If you're, like I was in the state mental hospital, so I get in special ed there. I was in an orphanage, so I go to Anderson. I'm in this foster home. I go to Amelia. You know, I did a little bit of these schools, but I didn't really do school. I lived in D.C. a lot. Cincinnati was home base. I don't know where my water is. I'm sorry, Riley. Thank you. I'm just recovering from double pneumonia, so I'm sorry to have to wet the throat a little. In those 3 years, I would land in more than 24 institutions. I was so angry. There's a song that Concrete Blonde had in the 80s, Joey. And one of the lines in that song is, Joey, I'm not angry anymore. And that's like one of my theme songs. I'm not angry anymore, but boy, was I angry. I hated, I blamed everybody. I didn't know anybody that had ever had a worse life to me than my foster brother and sister. You know, I had the worst little life of anybody knew. I was adopted, and I was put back in orphanages, and I had a lot of people that would co-sign this. I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous not at my sobriety date. I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous October the 16th, 1980. And for those of you that have had some relapses, the big book in the foreword to the second edition says that 50% of us will get sober right away that really try. Another 25% will get sober after several tries that really try. And another 25% may never establish long-term recovery, but our lives will continue to improve if we really try. So I want to take all the shame away from relapse for anybody. It is part of alcoholism for some of us. If you are one of the people that came here and have not relapsed, 50% never have to. You don't have to. I did. And the reason I did is that when I got here, admission wasn't too tough, but I didn't really take the first step. So when I got here, I don't remember any of it. I'm a blackout drinker, so people have to tell me what happened. I carried a gun because I was afraid. I hitchhiked back from Washington, D.C. to Cincinnati because my foster brother was having surgery. They were the only people I stayed in touch with. And it's unlikely with a neuromuscular disease that you're going to survive a surgery. It's just dangerous. And he did. And I did what I would have done whether he survived or whether he died. See, he survived, so I called it celebrating. If he died, I would have called it grieving. Both would have looked the same. I have a cocktail. See, everything calls for a cocktail for me. Every emotion, lack of emotion, excitement, lack of excitement, all needs a cocktail. I got no tools for any of it. So I blacked out. I've got this gun. Why do I have a gun? It wasn't like it is now. It wasn't the Wild Wild West. And, I had a gun because I was afraid. And I found that if I had that gun, people paid better attention to me. And so I went chasing a friend of mine into a retail store. who was trying to get away from me, drunk, waving a gun. I don't know why. And if you run into a retail store waving a gun, guess what? It's bad news. And if the people that work there get scared and they call the police, guess what? It's bad news. And if the police come and you want to explain why you should keep your gun, it's bad news. And if you kick the back window out of the cruiser when they put you in it and break a cop's nose, bad news. I wake up in University Hospital in Cincinnati hanging on a cinder block wall, strapped down to a gurney. When I could see myself, I'm black and blue from my chin to my knees. And I immediately did what I always did. Who did this to me? Because, see, all I can see is how people in the world are doing bad things to me. I can never see how I put the ball in motion, which renders me completely powerless. It means I'm at the mercy of the world, right? So who did this to me? And this nurse laughed at me. It's the second time I heard I'm an alcoholic. She said, you did. She said, you're an alcoholic. Huh. And she said, the sheriff's on his way to get you. Okay. You're not going to juvenile. I'm barely 17 years old. She said, you're going to county jail. They're going to try you as an adult. See, I had burnt the system out. Every place they ever put me, people tried to help me. For those of you that have had consequences, you know what I'm talking about. You go places, and there's always somebody. There's always some angel. There's always somebody. But I was too angry. I needed it to be helped my way. I needed the people that did these bad things to me to make it right. I didn't want your help. I wanted it the way I wanted it. I was so angry. So what I did was I hurt other people's opportunity to get help because of my anger. So they took me to the workhouse in Cincinnati, Ohio, which doesn't exist anymore. And here's my good news. I always have more consequences. Like my two brothers that hardly had any consequences. I used to be jealous. I fared so much better because of my consequences. So I went into alcoholic seizures in that jail. I was malnourished from the streets. I was beat up. And now I'm in alcoholic seizures. And because of that, I got a different kind of help. And because of that, I got taken to a hospital and put in whirlpool tubs for 2 weeks and revived. And then I was told to go to A of A. And you got to remember, like, I'm a little street punk, so, I'm cool. You know what I mean? And I got a really rough vocabulary. You use your imagination. It consists of about 5 words. And I love to use it because it keeps you over here. So I'm going to prove that you don't really want to be near me by blah, blah, blah. You know what UAA people do? You don't care. You're like, oh, give me a hug. Aren't you an angry one? Thank God for you. I didn't think it was cute at the time. I tell you what I fell in love with. I fell in love with the fact that you were nice to me. I didn't believe I had your disease. I believed I was broken. I'd been given so many labels in all of those institutions. I thought that there was something so corely broken in me that could never be fixed. And you guys said, Cyndi, just work those steps. And I said this with everything in me. I said, I wish your little steps would work for me. But see, you don't understand. I'm broken. And I was so afraid to try your steps because if I tried them and it didn't work, it proved all the things they said were right. It proved that there was something in me that I should be thrown away. And so I came to AA and I hung out. I hung out at Oak Street, one of the oldest clubhouses in the country in Cincinnati, and I slept on your couches. And I used you the same way I used people on the streets. I manipulated you to buy my cigarettes, my meals, to give me a place to stay, because I didn't know anything different. But the problem with somebody like me, who's not drinking, that hasn't taken the steps, is I got this head, and it is out to get me. They're going to figure out who you are. They know you don't belong in AA. Well, you're just lying to get to be here. Who would lie to get to be in AA? You know what I mean? It's like, They're going to figure out you're not a real alcoholic. You're just saying it to be a part of them. That's dumb. And so I can't live with this. See, I either got to have a cocktail or I got to have a solution. So I found a couple of people in AA to go drink with. Guys, they're easy. And I always break out in felonies. And I'm talking about when I drink, I'm so smart. I do not get sexy felonies. I get dumb felonies. Like, I get arrested in a county I've never been arrested in, but guess what for? In broad daylight, I go to a model home to take carpet to go put in somebody's apartment. Who does that? I got lucky. I got a detox nurse as my probation officer once I got through that. And she knew I loved Alcoholics Anonymous and didn't think I belonged. I loved AA and didn't think I deserved you. And she said two things. I'm 6 months into AA. I'm still 17 years old. She said, first things first, you're going to become an emancipated adult. You've been living like one a long time, now you're going to be one. Okay. And then you're going to go to a halfway house for women where there weren't any in Ohio or Indiana in January of 1981. There was one in Lexington, Kentucky. I said, okay. And so I went to this halfway house. And I'm just going to tell you a few things I learned because I want to get on to recovery. In this halfway house, I learned what all of us eventually learn if we're going to be happy here. If we're going to be happy here. All right? I can't think and feel better to act better. It doesn't work. I've always been waiting for the right shrink, enough love, the right therapist, so that I could feel the way you look, so I could act the way you act. Well, that halfway house could give a crap how I felt. They said, Cyndi, go to AA meeting early, help set up and make coffee. I did. And guess what happened? I started to think I belonged at that meeting. See, because it was by participating, by making coffee, by setting up, people began to know my name. And that's the sweetest thing to a newcomer. Remember their name. There's nothing sweeter, because people haven't for a long time. When we're drinking, we become invisible. You know, and so people paid attention, and I was a part of something, and I loved it. By the way, newcomers, we never ask you to make coffee because we like your coffee. All right? Your coffee sucks. All right? We let you make coffee so you can have that experience I had, and you get to be a part of, because it's the only thing that's going to let you fit. It's true. Then they said, Cyndi, you need to go get a JOB. All right, I got no driver's license, because you have to have somebody sign for it if you're not 18 years old. I never had anybody sign for it. Right? Now, I've been living on the streets. You can imagine my resume. You really shouldn't share it with people. And I was really feeling sorry for myself. I said, I can't get a job. Guess what they said? We don't care what you think or feel. Go get a job. And I got a job setting tobacco in the fields. And it changed my life. Because for the first time, I've made this honest money. And now, after meetings, my chin's up, my shoulders are back. I'm not manipulating some guy to buy my pie at Denny's. I'm buying my own, you know, because that's how we begin to like ourselves. We do things that people that like themselves do. I can't feel esteem by looking in the mirror saying I like myself. I feel esteem by doing things like getting a job and helping others. Never do I feel better focusing on me and my wants and needs, ever. But man, was that hard to learn as a newcomer. You know, because it's all about me, my hurt, my pain, what I don't have, what I have. And that's the sure way to commit suicide. What changing these things taught me was Focusing on you made me feel better. Focusing on making coffee made me feel a part of. Going and working, there's no bad jobs in AA. Setting tobacco, that sounds terrible, doesn't it? But my gosh, how proud was I. Then they said I had to go get my GED. I said, GED, man, that's for losers. That's for people that didn't go to high school and stuff. Because I don't know about you, but if I don't think I can do it, it sucks. Just like if I think you're not going to like me, I don't like you first. You know what I mean? They said they didn't care how I felt about that GED. Go take this test and see where I'd be in the classes. I took that test, and guess what? I didn't have to take any classes. See, I thought I was street smart and book dumb, and it wasn't true. I took that big test, and I scored in the top 2% of anybody that had ever taken that test. Now, mind you, it was Kentucky, okay? But still. And here's what changed, and this is what recovery changes. Recovery changes not anything outside of me at all. Not all of us get a family back. Not all of us get a good job. Not all of us get a house. Not all of us get a spouse. Here's what recovery changes. It completely changes the way I see things, my angle of approach. And so when I got that GED, that thing that was for losers, all of a sudden I'm going around saying, look at me, I'm Cyndi, I got a GED, baby. And that's the way I roll. I went back to Cincinnati. I'm an AA wonder girl. You've seen us. Memorized the big book. Quoted it in every meeting. Let every old-timer that misquoted it know how they got it wrong. I BS'd my way into a job I had no business in. It was by making amends to the Muscular Dystrophy Association for doing a fundraiser in that foster home where I borrowed the money as an investment. Didn't work out. And so they had me do some volunteer work for them. Talk about going to the same source, expecting different results. And then a weird thing happened in they have two district directors, one for Hamilton County and one for all the outlying counties. And the outlying counties came open. And a weird fluke of events, they offered me that job. I'm 20 years old. I'm 2 years sober. And my ego took that job. Because I always thought, man, if I hadn't been a drunk, if I didn't have this miserable childhood, who knows what I would be? And it was like, I'm finally recognized. And I said, yes, I'll take this job. And they gave me a business card, and they gave me a secretary. And I would go pass that business card out at Oak Street and say, you two work the steps. You can get a business card, a secretary, and a new car. I didn't get it. I really thought to be a good AA member, I needed to accomplish things so that you would see me as a good AA member. That's not it, guys. Sometimes the very best AA member lives in the projects, has little to no money, and gives everything they have, and lives in constant thought of others. See, that's the person with the best sobriety. It's when am I not thinking about you, and I'm not thinking about me, but I'm thinking about you? Have I put my life on a giving basis? That's recovery. But I didn't get it. I still thought I had to accomplish something because, see, I've got to be more to be enough. I need a little nicer car. I never think I'm better than you. I need a little nicer car so it's good enough for you to ride in. I need a little nicer house so it's good enough to invite you in. Even in AA, I got to know more about the traditions, the concepts. You know, I have to know more about the history in the big book to be more to be enough. Almost a year into that job and almost 3 years sober, I woke up drunk. And I don't remember drinking. What I believe led up to that drunk are two things. I never completely did the first step, number one. Number two, I did not develop the capacity to be honest. And I'm not talking about honesty, I stole from you, I tell you I stole from you. I'm talking about the courage to be authentically and transparently myself. See, I was still wearing all these masks even in AA because I had to be more to be enough. And so you can never measure up when you have to be more to be enough. And so I never could tell the truth that I didn't know how to do that job. And I was waiting for them to figure out they'd hired the wrong person and when they were going to fire me. And I didn't know how to do the job. And instead, I ran away from it. I could have, in hindsight, come to you and said, I don't know how to do this. And you would have told me it'd be okay to quit, or you might have taught me how to do it. But instead, my pride and my ego said, you don't throw away a gift. And they kept me in my pride, my ego kept me there. And when I woke up drunk, I was not sad, I was relieved. Because I had lived in this vibration sober of not being authentic, not being honest, not being real, just being a big shot. And it's a lonely place to be. Because you never have any idea, does anybody ever really love you? Because you never let them see you. How do you know? And I came back to AA the next day. I drank. I'm ready to be sober. But guess what happened? That phenomena craving, ba-boom, there it was. I left that meeting and I went and bought a bottle of booze. This went on for almost a year. By the end of the year, I didn't try to come back to AA very often. My drinking life became a normal one. There were no felonies. There were no threats of prison. I think I made one baby psych unit, but, not like a state mental hospital or anything. And my drinking life became normal. I drank with people that drank like me. I'm a gross drunk, and I always say this, and I will always say this, because I'm sober a very long time. It is very easy to begin to dramatize what our drinking was like. It's very easy to have euphoric recall, and I don't want to have that. See, when I drink, I throw up. I urinate on myself. I black out. Bad things happen. That's the truth. There's not a sexy thing about my drinking. I'm coming out of a blackout, which if you are a blackout drinker, then like me, I have woke up in some very traumatic situations, coming to out of a blackout, not having any idea, how did I get there? Did I volunteer? Am I safe? Am I not safe? And so when I come out of a blackout, it's not just fear, it's terror. So my last drunk, December the 16th, 1985, I'm coming out of this blackout and I'm crying because I don't know how to get home. And I want to be safe, and I've puked on myself and I've peed on myself, very sexy. But here's the real pitiful, incomprehensible, demoralizing piece of that. I'm sitting right in front of where I live. And something shifted that night. And what I believe shifted that night was I went from the first step that we read on the wall to the first step in the big book. So admission that we're powerless and our life's unmanageable is not the first step of recovery. It's the first step we read on the wall, just like the third step that we read on the wall is not the third step action we take. In the big book it says, we concede it to our innermost self that we are alcoholic. This is the first step of recovery. So what's the difference? I've never had power over alcohol, and I've never had a manageable life. What changed that night, I'd always had lingering notions. I didn't know it, but I had lingering notions that if somehow my life got stable, if I got an education, if I had enough money to have a safe place to live, that maybe somehow I could drink like other people. And what happened that night was that I knew no matter what changed outside of me, drinking was always going to take me exactly there. That was as good as it would ever get. And I believe we all have to have that complete concession if we're to achieve and maintain long-term sobriety. I'll tell you a couple more things about this, and then boy, do we have a lot to rock on about sobriety. So I asked this gal to sponsor me, who didn't know near as much about the big book as me. She did not know about all the Oxford group literature, had barely heard about the Washingtonians. The only thing that she knew was how to get sober, kind of work the steps, get a husband, a couple kids, and be reasonably happy. And I thought, see, they called me Big Book Cyndi, and I thought, when I ask her to sponsor me, she's going to be so thrilled that Big Book Cyndi has asked her to sponsor. So I asked her, and here's what she said. Well, Cyndi, one condition. All right, you're no longer allowed to quote the Big Book. You know, because that's where all my elevation in meetings comes. The humility I had was to say, okay. She said, you can only paraphrase as it applies in your life. Because, see, this is not this. Memorizing the book, knowing all these things has nothing to do with recovery. It's a hobby. I have a history hobby of AA. It does not enhance my recovery. One-on-one work with other alcoholics, spiritually growing towards God and the light, that enhances my sobriety. Caring about you, continuing to be willing to rip myself open, that's what does it. I've been sober a long time. When I was about 10 years sober, I moved to Louisville, Kentucky from Cincinnati. And I did not like their AA. I tried to explain to them that I came from Ohio, where AA was founded. And they might want to take a few notes. Yeah, winning friends and influencing people right away. So after I felt lonely, I started standing by the door, being a greeter, being one of many, until a fellowship grew up around me. And I love Louisville AA today. And I'm a part of Louisville AA. When I was 11 years sober, my grandma died. And I know everybody's grandma dies, and that shouldn't be that big a deal, but I didn't have very many safe people when I was growing up. My grandma was my safe person. See, when I grew up, and when my grandma grew up, it was popular to be prejudiced just because you're supposed to be, and to dislike people because of their sexuality or their color. My grandmother didn't. She didn't utter a negative word towards anybody or any group of people. Like, she loved everybody. And she went to church all the time, and she's the only person that didn't scare me. Never once did she say, there's a lake on fire waiting for you. No, she said, Cyndi, God loves you, period. And the only other place I heard that was from you. And so when my grandma died, what's the big deal? She was scared. She was scared. She'd done nothing but serve God and his kids her whole life. And now she's going to die, and she's scared. Oh, I was mad. I'm 11 years sober, and I take a walk in the dark. Because I said, God, if you're going to let this little lady that served you your whole life be afraid to come meet you, I don't want nothing to do with you. You're not who I thought you were. And I thought about blowing my brains apart. And I got news for you. You stay sober long enough, all of us will take a walk in the dark at some point. I don't know what the circumstance will be, but all of us will. This was mine. What I did right. I went to meetings and I told the truth. I didn't go to meetings with my 11-year sober persona and say, I'm fine. No, and I also didn't puke my problems in the meeting. I went to meetings and I cried. And I said, I can't feel God. Now I'm speaking at conferences. I have a reputation to uphold. But I'm not doing that. I'm going to meetings and I'm saying, I can't feel God. And I'm afraid. And I don't know what to do. And the other thing that I did right was I was willing for God to show up if he showed up. And I don't care what you call God. God has morphed into so many different things throughout my recovery. Creator, whatever. For simplicity's sake, I call God God. I had a Harley Davidson I bought in early recovery. It was a big old FLH, looked like it came out of the 50s with long fishtail pipes. And because, they said meditate. Well, I vibrated. I'd get on that Harley, man. It vibrated more than me. It was louder than that committee in my head, and I could feel God in the wind. See, it was my first meditation tool. Because here's the truth, God will meet you wherever you are. All you got to do is want to meet God. You can be in a jail cell. You can be in a nut ward. You can be on a Harley. You can be on a mountaintop. You can be on a beach. God does not make too hard terms for those that wish to meet him. That's the truth. So now I'm 12 years sober. I'm getting on my Harley. I'm willing to find God. I'm on Interstate 65 or 65, 64, and 71 all come together. I'm doing about 70 miles an hour. The next thing I know, somebody's coming over in my lane. Well, I can't go anywhere, so boom, I'm hit. And according to the police report, I'm catapulted 17 foot in the air. I come down, I land on the hood of a car that's driving down the center lane of the highway. Can you imagine that? Hello. I roll off that car, and that car drove up me. Now, I don't know what's happened, but my ribs are crushed, and they have gone through my lungs, and so I cannot breathe. And I know I'm dying, because when you can't breathe, you're dying. And I get afraid, probably like my grandma. I got real afraid. And I always say this too, and I'll say it again. We're afraid to change home groups. Of course we're afraid of the next big adventure. And then I let go in the most absolute way I've ever let go, and I had the most incredible experience with my Creator, and I got wrapped in nothing but love. And that's what I believe God is. I just got wrapped in love. My face was shredded by the undercarriage of that car. I've had dozens of surgeries trying to put my face back together, and for a long time I looked really scary. And, angle of approach. Who else has been kissed on the cheek by God? And that's all. It's just, how do I want to look at it? I can say I'm ugly forever, or I can say, look at me, I'm God's favorite. I got a real kiss. And that wasn't it. I called my mom in Cincinnati and my sister, and they said, you should come, but she'll probably be dead by the time you get here. Because my heart had got shoved over, my aorta got crushed. There's no reason I'm here. I have a spinal cord injury. The worst injury from that wreck was a traumatic brain injury. And, up until this point, I was still rough in AA. You've seen some of us. We're 10, 11 years sober, but we're still a little tough. Because I was doing the best I could, and God gave me a lot of grace. But I didn't believe that people really loved me. I believe you love me because you had to. And I did the best I could, but I didn't trust so much. And that wreck, people from Cincinnati, people from Louisville, they had to make new visiting regulations in the hospital. There was so many of you, they thought I must be a celebrity. You know what I mean? It's like there's flowers, there's all this stuff. You know what happened? I felt loved. And how beautiful is that? And then I went home, and I'm in all these clinics, and I'm having seizures, because that's what happens. You get this big brain injury and all this spinal cord stuff, and I'm having seizures, and I lost my business. I lost everything I owned. I went on Social Security disability. A federal judge fast-tracked me, and I went on Social Security disability and food stamps. I'm 12 years sober. What's going to become of my life? What's going to become of me? I don't think that's anybody's aspiration for 12 years sober. But you know what happened? I was in the middle of AA. So you brought me new girls who were feeling sorry for themselves. They would walk in my door. I'd be sitting there like this. They say, tell Cyndi what you told us in the car on the way over. That new girl would say, a little coaxing, and guess what? Well, Cyndi, well, my boyfriend left. I don't know how I'm going to go on. I would have a seizure, and she would feel better. Now, understand, I got no memory. See that big, brilliant mind that memorized the big book? Now I don't know your name 10 minutes after I meet you. But what I know is people come to my house and they feel kind of sad. And they leave my house and they feel happy. And I'm feeling a little like Gandhi, you know what I'm saying? What did I do right? I let it be enough. See, that's not what I envisioned being at the top of my spiritual game, having a seizure. But I didn't demand it look different. I let it be enough for me to feel useful. And you know what happens when a drunk feels useful? We start to get better. And with everything, if I feel useful, I can get better from anything. And I can at least enjoy what I have. So I started to get better. I'm going to tell you, all the things I'm going to tell you happened in the 6-year spread. 2 years, I'm still having surgeries from the wreck. Starting to piece my life together a little bit. And I get diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And so now those surgeries got to be put on hold because we got to do surgeries and I did chemo, radiation. I was very young to have that aggressive breast cancer. I spent a year going through that. And for a minute I thought, God, what do you want from me? Man, I had this childhood. Should have taken anybody out. I come off the streets where nobody makes it out alive. I come out of these institutions. People are left to rot. I have alcoholism. I had a highway motorcycle accident that could have killed anybody. What do you want? And we pause. And what I heard back was, what do you want? And this is what I mean by angle of approach. In that moment, from being like, poor Cyndi, little terrible life, went to, who gets to survive any of these things, let alone all of them? I really am God's favorite. That's what recovery gives us. If we're spiritually centered, and it talks about it in the 12 and 12 in the 12th chapter. Nothing outside of our making. Nothing. No calamity out unless we're stirring the pot can shake us to our spiritual roots. Our life can still have purpose. It can still be worth living. I'd like to tell you that was it. At the end of chemo, I got a bright idea. I'm still a recipient of the Brain Injury Association Trust Fund, and they're helping me figure out how to pay my bills. They're not giving me money. I just can't figure out how to pay what when. I made a big announcement. I was going to start a business next week. And you know what they didn't do? They didn't say, what are you thinking? You know you can't do that. See, we do that too often to try to save people from failing. See, failing's good. We can learn from it. We can be better because of it. What that lady said to me, she said, if you need help organizing there, let me know. I'll help you there too. Now, let me tell you, fast forward a few years, guess what? That business does business globally. And it's not because of me. It's in spite of me. I can't do a thing. It does. I've just been very lucky to attract really good people that would do work without getting paid and clients that would give me money without me having a business card. I don't know how. All right? But clearly, if we go about the business of God's business, God somehow takes care of ours. So I started being in this business, and then I started to fall down, and I couldn't get up. So when I was a kid, I got kicked through doorways. My back was broke. And then an accident exacerbated it. So my spinal canal got pushed forward. They had to go cut part of it and do this big deal surgery. I'm not going to go into it. Every bad thing that's happened to me has ended up being a gift because I let it be. And that happened. It triggered all this whole trauma that helped me go through this whole forgiveness thing. That's become the biggest miracle of my life. You know, I'm a free woman because I forgive. I am not angry. I would not have applauded that when I was new. That's the last thing I wanted to do. And here's the thing, if you're new, you didn't have to. But someday, God puts things on your heart and it's time, and you just do. Because you want to be of more service to God and those about you. And there's no way to do it but through it. For the grand finale that 6 years, I bought a Victorian house. We have a lot of them in Louisville, Kentucky. And I was showing a contractor, and I slipped through the rafters in the attic and landed in the doorway below on my neck. My C5 vertebrae was split in half, and I was paralyzed from the chest down. And I wouldn't tell these stories because how unrealistic does this sound? Except that people in AA, my family couldn't take care of me. People in AA have been there every step of the way, and all of this happened in Louisville. And every step of the way, you didn't stop showing up for me. You didn't stop feeding me. You didn't stop taking me to doctor's appointments. I did not want to get up when I was paralyzed. I could only move my arms like this. I was 3 months in a hospital, and I was tired. You didn't care. You get up for us this time, masters. All right. And so it was a journey, but here I am. You know, I celebrated 40 years in December. And they had a party. My sponsees are all over. They're here tonight. Like, they're all over there. And they came and had this 40th party for me. They did these videos from people in my life, like these 1-minute videos that got saved for me. And my sister. You know, none of us stayed at home past 15. My parents were very educated. None of us graduated high school. We did not grow up in a safe place. My sister calls me Mama Sister. I'm prouder of that than anything. And when I was getting sober, she was having her first baby because that's how she got out of the house. She's 2 years younger than me, and I wouldn't allow near her kids. She hated me for leaving her, for abandoning her, because I was her safe person. If I was going to be there, her kids weren't allowed in the same room. I made amends to her. This is my first recovery program. I was 18 years old, and I was sober a little bit. And I made amends to her, and it began to change everything. And I spent our relationship trying to be of service and trying to be the best aunt to those boys and do things that they couldn't do because they didn't have any money, and I could help with things. And probably the most special video of all the ones I got was from her, because she talked about the difference I made and because of my sobriety in her kids' lives, in her life. And this week she called me, she said, "No, I don't want you to put your sister hat on. I need you to be my sponsor for a minute." You know, she's not in recovery, right? She doesn't need recovery. And nothing makes me prouder that she respects me and I respect her, and we're so close. My girls know. Like, I live very transparently. But amends have changed my life. The amends that I've made to people where I was only 10% wrong, like to my dad, have been really some of the most rewarding. I wouldn't have thought that when I was new, but it's turned out that way. You know, these gals, during COVID, I got really afraid. I felt like I was locked up again. And I got scared. It triggered some of that, and I didn't know what to do. And so I got really involved in online AA, and I took up native flute. And I started playing native flute like 3 hours in the morning. And it's decadent pleasure. I have businesses, and I do not have that kind of time for prayer and meditation. But I had that 3 hours, and flute made all my energy get below my heart. So We all have this perfect God-listening device right here. And I would play that flute till my energy got below here, and I was so connected with God. And I started attracting a lot of women into my life that were sober a long time, that were looking for a new experience in recovery. And so we did this step study, and we dug deep, and we got down to our toes, and we unlayered, and it's been so beautiful. It's transformed me. I listened to 17 Fifth Steps in the summer. Most of them took a day and a half. And it was about take away all the judgment of ourselves, of what we shouldn't be resentful about. Stop presenting that there's not another layer to unveil. We are all the givers in our communities. How do we get to a place where we can get naked with each other and feed each other? And this beautiful thing has happened. And I really encourage everybody to find a way to dig deep in longer sobriety. And I'm not talking about, there's these things, but always, I have grown more in the last 10 years than the first 10. My capacity for honesty and truth is so much greater. I have grown more this year than last year, and last year than the year before. And that's my measurement for recovery. That's my measurement for emotional sobriety. Am I becoming less self? Am I becoming more selfless? Is my capacity to love greater? Is my capacity for judgment diminished? Do I catch myself quicker? Am I willing to be all in? Hell yes. Lastly, I'll share this. I don't know what I'm going to share lastly, to be honest. If I would have even dreamed my biggest dream 10 years ago at 30 years sober, I would have shortchanged myself. The same thing as when we're new. Don't quit dreaming. There's so much more. I don't know how to say. There's just, and it doesn't mean that you have a bad program because there's more to dig in. You have a good program because you're willing to dig in, because you're willing to be naked, because you're willing to see it all, and because there's more. Bill Wilson did it with the priest, and if you read in that sponsorship book that they did, you can see their exchange of letters, and it's like, how do we spiritually keep, I'm hungry. I'm as hungry as I've ever been. I have a library in my house, and on this side is every religious book that I could get my hands on. I mean, everything. And it's fascinating to me, and the similarities are fascinating. In this side, I have all the AA stuff. So I've got Native American stuff. I've got the Quran. I've got it all. Because I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to read. I'm not afraid to learn. God's only going to put on my heart what belongs to me. And I want to be of service to whoever God puts in front of me. That's where my joy comes. I hope you find the same joy. Thank you for having me.